Hello everyone, this is Ben with ERP Connect Consulting, and in this video, we're going to show you how to set up a project in our project management extension. Now, this is the first video of a multi-part series for project management, and you can start by going out and downloading project management from AppSource, and after you've downloaded it, you can go straight into the setup. So I'm going to start this video by going into the project management setup. And the first thing you'll notice is a handful of different areas you can configure. Now, the first thing to mention here is that this project management extension is meant to be an alternative to the jobs module. So a lot of people ask, how does this enhance jobs? It really doesn't. It sits completely separate from jobs and allows you to do some project management in a more easy fashion by linking a project dimension to some of the transactions that we're going to do today. So as we get started, the first thing you'll need to do, as you do with any of our applications, is go generate the demo key right here, after which your 30-day trial, you can come up here into the enter activation key, which we can provide on a yearly subscription. So after you've done all that, you can go up here and edit and start to work through some of the base setup in project management. So the first thing you'll need is a project number series. You can just go ahead and set that up in your standard number series. I've also got templates that you can do to set up templated projects. So I'm going to go set up our project templates. Over here, if you're doing anything with prepayments, you can set up what balance sheet account those prepayments go to. You can also select the project billing option. We have both summary and detail, and then within each of those, we can display master timesheets or employee timesheets. We'll get that further granular when we go into the actual project itself and start talking about billing. One of the most important things right here on this dimension is how it's linked, right? So similar to our auto create dimensions tool, which I would definitely recommend checking out, this uses some of those features in order to link the project you're creating to a project dimension. So in this case, my project dimension is dimension number 3. Anytime I create a new project, it's automatically going to create a dimension value and then link that dimension value back to my project. So anytime you transact against it, it will pull it into that summarized view, which is kind of our project dashboard, right? To see all the sales and the purchases and anything that's going on within that project. So for this sake, we're going to be utilizing dimension 3 to track our project. The next two are just going to be some financial reports. So financial reporting for the projects. In this case, I have 2 different income statements that I'm going to be utilizing. That's going to be in a future session that hyper focuses on reporting and dashboarding. Down here, we've got PO follow-ups. Again, this will be in a separate session, so we can dive deeper into that setup. But just as we go through this, the PO follow-up is going to be sent out to your vendors. So if you're looking at the project, we can look at some item availability. I just put in something fun here, right? Where's my stuff? And then you can kind of send the vendor for purchase orders that you have not received, a notice via email there. And then the last 2 things here, the first being the timesheets. So we're going to be utilizing timesheets to capture time for employees as well as contractors. We'll talk about that more in the session, but you will need a number series so that the timesheets can generate time. And then lastly, if you're attaching a lot of documents to project management, I would highly recommend turning on Azure Blob Storage so that it does not hit against your Business Central memory, but rather goes against your Azure Blob Storage. Just makes Business Central run faster and then ultimately avoids any additional fees once you hit that 80 gigabyte limit in Business Central. So with all of that, we'll go into one more setup piece and then we'll actually jump into the project configuration itself. So lastly, you'll need master team members. This is just going to help when we get into the projects, quickly navigate and quickly add people to projects. If there's people that are one-offs like contractors that may not necessarily be on your core team, you don't have to add them here. This is just for the people that are going to be on the majority of the projects that are kind of your quote-unquote master team members that are going to be utilized on most projects that your company does. So here I've got myself, I've got a contractor, and I've got Matt on my team. You would just link them to an employee as well as a resource. One thing to note, every employee must be linked to both an employee and a resource. If it's a contractor that all they're doing is submitting invoices to you, you can just set them up as a resource. But if the contractor's also entering time in your system, make sure they're also set up as an employee. So easy rule there. If they're entering time directly in Business Central for projects, make sure they're linked to an employee. If all they're doing is sending you bills and things like that, all you have to do is set them up as a resource. So with that, I'm going to go back to the setup. We'll talk about the send task reminders later when we get into that piece. But with that, we're ready to go ahead and create a project. So let's go back to the home page and I'm going to go into my projects. Now, I've already set up one today just for the sake of time to keep the video here concise, but when you create this new project, the first thing you're going to do is come up to the project number. You can tab off that, it will auto number for you. And now if I go to my dimensions, remember that we had this set up as dimension number 3, come into project, go to dimension values. If I go to 0001, you'll see consulting project number 1 right here. And that dimension that's been created automatically is now also linking back to this project specifically. So after that, just some basic things, give the project a name, put a category in here for the project. So predefined, we have customer, so a customer facing project that you're going to be billing for and all that kind of stuff. We also have some options here for some internal projects. If you're just looking to track expenses and that kind of thing for those projects, you'd want to select one of these. I'm going to leave it for customer today because that's going to be our bread and butter here. Project description, just Business Central implementation is going to be my example for today, something a lot of people using Business Central are hopefully familiar with. And then we're going to do it for customer 100. We'll talk about that in a second. Assign a project manager. So I'm just going to put myself. Project status, in order to start booking time and expenses and things like that, it'll need to be in progress. As you create it for the first time, it will just leave it as not started. So as you start working with it, after you do the setup, just make sure you change it to in progress. And then the project percent complete will actually calculate up here with a button. So anytime you want to recalculate that, just click calculate percent complete and it will run through all of your phases and tasks, which we'll get to in a second, and recalculate all of those for you. Now, the last thing before we get into phases and tasks is going to be our customer. So we defined this as a project category of customer, which means that we need to link this project to a customer. Now, I'm just linking it to customer 100, Snow and Ice Removers LLP. You can also define a customer project manager, their contact email, and their phone number. So after you've set that up, now you basically have the header information at the project level defined, and you can jump into your phases and your tasks. So with any good project management tool, right, you're going to be wanting to manage the workflow of when things are getting done and the Gantt charts and all of that. So the next step in that case would be to set up phases and then have tasks under those phases. So in a traditional implementation, right, you're going to have some discovery, design, building it out. We'll add a few more in here in a second, but just to get the general framework. Now, if I'm clicked on discovery, you'll notice that all my discovery tasks show up. If I click design, it will start to toggle it real time into those design and build tasks, right? So let's focus on discovery for right now. You can give it a phase number, a phase name, a description, and then a start and end date, which will go into our Gantt chart view here in a second. How much time you're estimating this phase to take. So I'm going to say it's going to take between 20 and 30 hours. And then I've already booked 1 hour on this project, which we'll get into here in a second. But at any time, you can click into that and see all of the time entries that have been booked to that phase. The same thing will work at the task level as well. And then the phase percent complete, like I mentioned up here, you can see phase percent complete, you can see task percent complete, and you can see the overall project percent complete. So as granular as you want to get or as high level as you want to get is all available on this project management card. Now, if I look specifically at one of these phases, let's go down to discovery. Now I can see the tasks that are associated with discovery, right? So the first natural thing in any good discovery is to start talking about the chart of accounts. Now you can see here, I've got my task, I've got my start and end date more granularly for the task, right? I'm saying that the full phase is going to be taking place in July, but the tasks in July are going to be scheduled out week by week. I've got status for the task. So this one's in progress. We're 15% of the way complete. You can assign people to the task. And when you assign someone, they can actually get an email that they've been assigned to the task, which we'll show here in a second. How many hours are estimated for that task? And again, you can drill into the actual hours here. Now, after you have that full framework set up, you can look at the Gantt chart. Now, when I'm looking at this Gantt chart, I've got it consolidated into a monthly view. You can change this view on the setup, which I'll show you here in a second. But just kind of at an overall level, you can see how long the discovery phase should take, the design phase should take, and the build phase should take, as well as the full consulting project. And then, of course, like I just did, you can click these drop downs and it will drill into the specific tasks of the phases, right, that you're working with. Now, if I came down here to the bottom on the schedule, you can look at the Gantt timeline mode. I've got month right now. If you wanted to look at week, I could go back into the Gantt chart and it's just going to spread it out a little further. So up top, you'll see now the weeks rather than the months, just kind of preference, a quick toggle on how you want to view those things, right? So as you get started, that's something to look at as you're building out those dates, just to make sure that those are flowing in line with kind of your go live date or whatever your target date is based on the type of project that you're working with. So that's a little about the phases and tasks. I mentioned that you can assign people to the task, and we talked about those project team members as well as the master team members. So if I go into team members up here at the top, this is going to be everybody that's working on my project, right? So you saw me entered originally. Maybe I want to enter Matt as well. By setting Matt up in the master team members, it now allows me to quickly add them to the project team members. So you can see that now all of his information has been entered directly here on the project team members list. I also had a contractor, right? But maybe there's a different contractor working on here. So maybe I go Paul the contractor. You'll notice that they don't have to be set up in the master team members. This might just be a one-off, contractor that's working on the project. So I'm going to go Paul the contractor, Paul at contractor.com. And now you would have to link them either to an employee or a project resource. The employee is going to be if they're entering time directly in the system. The resource is just if they're going to be sending you an invoice and you want to book that time, of course, billed back to the customer that your project's assigned to. Then this last thing that I'm going to talk about here is this project billing rate. So you'll see that my project billing rate is 200. Maybe Matt's is 225. And when I go back out after I set up all my project team members, right? If I go down to the bottom, there's this schedule and billing section. So what this is going to define with the bill rate specifically is you can have a bill rate at your project. And then under the billing rate options, we have different criteria here that we can select. So if I say project only, it's actually going to ignore what I just set up for Matt. So it's not going to care that Matt's at 225 and I'm at 200. It's just going to bill everything at 195 because we're doing project only. So it's going to bill everything at 195. However, if I had project with resource override, if a resource had a bill rate like we just saw, it would actually take their bill rate and apply that first. And then if their bill rate was blank, it would use whatever's on the project. And then finally, if it's resource only, it's only going to take whatever the resources rate is, and it's going to completely ignore the project rate here. So just a few things to look at when we're going through the schedule and the billing. I'm going to pop back up here to the top. We've got general business posting group option. Now, what does this do, right? So every customer is going to have a general business posting group assigned. However, if you want some of that GL activity when you're posting invoices and things like that to go somewhere other than what's on the customer's general business posting group, you can have a project override. So what this is going to do is at a project by project level, you can assign posting groups to dictate where the GL entries are going to go when you post things for this project, right? So kind of just another override that we would be looking at the project level. Time and billing, very important here, right? So talked about this at the default setup at the master level just a few minutes ago. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to dictate how time is billed when those project invoices go out to your customers, right? So summary only is just going to send a line that says how many hours were on whatever invoice that you produced. Summary with master timesheet is going to send the summary still in one line on the invoice, but it's going to attach a document with all of the time for the project. The third option is similar. It's going to show you a summary line on the invoice, but then the attachment is also going to have all of the employees' time in that timesheet view. Then the last two are details. So it's actually going to show the details directly on the invoice PDF copy that you might send your customer. And then you can either group it by the person. So it'll show Ben's time with all my tasks, then Matt's time with all his tasks, or you can group it first by task, and then it will show all of the time for the task. And then doesn't matter if it's for me or Matt, it's just going to show all of the time under the task and kind of group it like that, right? So with that, the last thing to mention is this default resource number. So if we're using a summary type, any of the first three options, we will need a default resource because it's just summarizing it, right? So I'm a resource, Matt's a resource, but if we're summarizing that, the tool doesn't know where to book it. So we just need a resource number so that we can generate the correct GL entries and kind of all of the entries that are associated with this project's billing or anything that's going on with this project, right? So if it's details, it doesn't matter because we have the resource already assigned to the person and those details are going to split it out by line anyways for us. So just something else good to look at as we go into this schedule and billing section. So With that, we are going to jump into our next section here, which is the schedule. So we've talked about the billing, and now we're going to talk about the schedule part of the schedule and billing. So this is really just a kind of overall summary of the project, right? So when is it going to start? When is it going to end? It's going to look at that when we go into the phases and tasks to make sure that our phases and task timelines are within this realm. And then at a high level, as we start adding start and end dates and budgets to our project, you'll see that we have a project min and max estimated hours. In this case, it's 150 to 230. And all that's really doing is saying this is kind of the budget that we think our project is going to fall under. And then, of course, you can see the actual hours down here that have been booked to the project. So it's just a quick summary view that you can drill into. And then finally, we have that Gantt chart, which we actually already looked at up top, but this would just be the setting. Since we went through it earlier, I figured that'd be a good place to start. Before going into actually putting time on a project, there are a few other things that we need to look at here on the project card. We have the project summary log here, which is just going to be some various notes and tasks or activities that have gone out. So we'll get into the emails in a second here, but this is just showing some of the things that have been created in the project summary log. And then the project documents, these are just things that you can attach to your project. We have the ability to actually, if you're working in the field, let's say, you can take a picture while you're on a task, which I'll show in a second as well, or you can just attach manual documents. So in this case, I attached our BC Toolbox 2-pager into the project documents, and that's just essentially saving it directly on the project card. Let's see if there's anything else we need on here. The last thing that we could look at here before getting into the actual billing of time is just going to be our dashboard real quick, and we'll have a full session on the dashboard. But what this is going to show is when the start date is, when the end date is, who the project members are, your hours by month, so you can kind of track your budgets to actuals up here, the percent completed, and then a quick view of your Gantt chart, as well as all of the different tasks and their statuses directly in this project. So again, just kind of a one-stop shop view that you can view and utilize here on your dashboard. So next thing we're going to show here as we kind of round out this session is putting time on a project. Now, remember, the project must be in progress to start billing time. And there's actually two ways to bill time here. So I could go directly into my task. I'm going to view the task here real quick. And in the task now, we'll go over this real quick before entering the project hours, you can actually have even more information on this specific task. So I've added some notes here just at a high level, go through the setup, go through some best practice, review the posting groups. At a task level, we can see all of the different task information. You can add a description and a category if you want, the start and end date, the percent complete and the actual hours, and then also who it's assigned to. So I could assign this to Matt, let's say. I'm going to click yes. I'm going to assign it back to myself so I can get a quick email to show you. Click yes here. While I wait for that email to come in, we can look at the checklist. So each task specifically can have a checklist. Here we've got 3 steps to the checklist. They're all assigned to me. And then I also have that task document. This is where I said you could attach a picture here. So I can go ahead and attach a picture. It's actually going to pop up my camera. We'll take a quick a selfie there. We can use that directly in the project, and it's just going to add that in here and save a new picture in the project. Of course, you probably won't be taking selfies. You'll probably be taking pictures of machinery or some service that you're doing out in the field, but you get the idea there. And then you can also have conversations down here within the task. So I could just tag Matt, say, please review the discovery notes with the client, and then he would get a notification. Speaking of notifications, I just got an email that this task has been assigned to me. I can use that link to open up the task directly from my email inbox, and that will open me to the task that we're working on with all of the notes that we've just talked about. So a really easy way to work with your team, enter the conversations, enter the tasks, assign people to tasks, and then make sure that they're getting those email notifications in order to complete those tasks. Now, the last thing on this task that I want to show is entering project hours. So 2 ways we can enter time, right? If I'm on this task and I'm working on it, I can just go in directly and enter the project hours. It's going to pre-populate my project, my phase, my task, and my date, current date. And then I could just say working on demo for chart of accounts. And This video is going to be about a half hour, so we'll bill about a half hour directly there, and I want to make sure that it's billable back to my client, and now I can go ahead and click close. You'll notice the actual hours went from 0.75 to 1.25, and it's going to start to aggregate those hours directly on this task. Now, if I come back, I can calculate the percent complete, and it's going to update to 2%. This is going to update to, let's see, phase complete is 6%. This task within the phase is 25% complete, and you can see it now taking the actual hours for what I just did, that 0.5, to actually include it now in our details. We'll get into this in a future session, but then you can also see the billing status of these, what sales invoice it was on, and all that fun stuff. So it's a really holistic end-to-end view to see the time that's been billed, and then also track it back to the project and see what the status of that billing is. Of course, we'll have some timesheet submittal as well. I'll go into the timesheet real quick. Let's go back to the home page. I've got my project timesheets right here, so let's go into timesheet 3, and this would be the other way to start recording time. So you can go into the task and then take the time, put it directly into the task, or you can come to your project timesheet and just start entering your time kind of like you would with other popular tools out there, right? So we've got a line view and a summary view. Right now I'm in the line view, so it's just going to show every timeline you have here. I could enter a new one. I could select my project. I could select my task. And I could put a description. It's going to default to whatever the description on that task was, but I can add some additional notes here. Maybe working with revenue accounts. I'm just going to put today's date in here, and maybe I spent an hour on that. Now, as I come in here, I can also flip over to the summary view. And now the summary view is going to list it out by project phase task. And then you can see over here, you could just enter time quickly by the day. So if I click into accounts receivable, 0.25, there's only one time entry here. So it's showing me the exact time entry that I could edit. If I click on the 2.25, there's multiple time entries. So it's actually showing every time entry that's listed here in a edit line view so that you can just quickly see everything that you're working with. Now, if you wanted to go in here, maybe I missed some time on the 29th. I could easily go in here, click this. It's going to pop it up. Again, missed time from timesheet, and I could bill a half hour. When I close that, it's going to save it here. And if I go back to the lines, it's also going to add it into my lines right there. Time entry number 18 on 6/29 billable with all of my descriptions there. So again, that will all flow back to the actual project. If I come back into my project list and go here, come back in here, now we're 4% complete. And then again, all of that time is flowing through into here. Now we see additional updates on the accounts receivable event or activity here that we've got 0.75 hours. And we're really starting to work on this project and now start to build it out, right? So people are working on it. People are entering their time. We're entering tasks for those people, which leads me to my next point. If we're talking about tasks, right, we want to make sure that everybody's sticking to their plan and making sure that we get things done in a timely manner. So if I want to, I can send project task reminders. And what this is going to do is it's going to look at all the past due tasks for the project that have not been completed, and it's going to send out email notices to those people. So you can see here, task, chart of accounts, discovery from project 1 has something that I haven't really looked at and I'm late on. So I'm going to get an email. Anybody else that's on the project would also get these emails. It's going to pop this open. And I should rephrase that. Anybody who is part of this task or assigned to this task will get this email because it's late. And then it's just popping it back up. What are my notes? What are my checklist steps? What are my documents? And what conversations do I have? So it's opening it directly here. And again, I could bill my time directly from entering project hours. I'm going to get out of here. One other thing I can do on the actual project itself. Let's go back into the project. From a notification standpoint, we talked about sending the project task reminders, but let's also send an email to the project team. Now, this is just going to send it to everybody that's listed on the project team. I'm just going to say, can everyone meet this Friday to talk about Go Live, right? So I'm just going to close that. And you'll notice we've got another project summary logged there. And if I come in here, I'm going to go, can everyone meet this Friday to talk about Go Live? And if I click the link, it's just going to open that project right back up to where we started. So Hopefully this first session of a multi-part series kind of explains some of why we would use our project management module. We went through the project management setup with all the team members and the task reminders and the general configuration. We reviewed setting up a project with automatically creating that dimension, making sure that dimension is linked. In our case, it was dimension number 3, adding project categories and templates, building out our phases and tasks so that they flow through to the Gantt chart, and then also setting up our project resources, both contractors as well as full-time employees, and the difference between those. Again, we will have a full session on employees versus contractors here coming up in the future, so please feel free to check that one out if that is something that you are interested in. Next would be that billing schedule down at the bottom. Just talked about the different billing options and the different scheduling options, how we can look at the overall timeline and the budget, as well as the Gantt chart for if we're on track or not. And then finally, we looked at putting time on projects, both via the task as well as the timesheet. In the task, we looked at the checklists and the conversations, how to add the time, how to add the pictures, updating the percent completes, and then holistically looking at this project to see kind of where you're at from a budget perspective, and then emailing task reminders and emails to the full team. So again, that is part 1. We do have a few upcoming videos that I would highly recommend checking out. Those are going to focus on working with sales and purchase documents, invoicing and billing out projects and their details, contractor time and contractor expense, and then finally everybody's favorite, reporting and dashboarding, so that you can quickly see the health of your project and the overall kind of activity that's working on that project. So hope you enjoyed part 1. Definitely recommend checking out the future sessions on project management as an alternative to the jobs module. And as always, if you have any questions or comments on this video, please feel free to reach out to our team. We love hearing the feedback and look forward to talking to everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.